Respected viewers, brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another episode of Ma'suma, the Gate of Salvation. What better way to start off this episode than reciting the ziyarah of our beloved Lady Ma'suma alayhi salam. Peace be upon you, O the daughter of the Messenger of Allah. Peace be upon you, O the daughter of Fatima and Khadija. Peace be upon you, O the daughter of the Commander of the Faithful. Peace be upon you, O the daughter of Hassan and Hussein. Peace be upon you, O the daughter of the Vicegerent of Allah. Peace be upon you, O the aunt of the Vicegerent of Allah. O Fatima, intercede for me, so that I may enter heaven, for indeed you have a great status in the eyes of Allah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept the ziyarah of all the believers on a night like this, the martyrdom of our beloved Lady Fatima Al-Ma'suma. And for that reason, I would like to send my condolences to you, my respected viewers, as well as to the Ahlul Bayt and the Muslim Ummah for the martyrdom of our beloved Lady Fatima Al-Ma'suma. Peace be upon her. A short narration by Imam Al-Jawad alayhi salam. He says, whoever visits my aunt Fatima Al-Ma'suma in Qum, heaven is guaranteed for him. So I encourage you, if not this year, the upcoming years, visit the shrine and the holy shrine of Lady Fatima Al-Ma'suma, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the gates of heaven open for the zuwar of Lady Fatima Al-Ma'suma. Respected viewers, welcome back. In the previous episode, we discussed the situation of the caravan of Lady Fatima Al-Ma'suma alayhi salam and the warm welcoming of the people of Qum to that caravan. We also discussed some merits and the names which were given to her by several Imams and several vicegerents of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But specifically in this episode, we are going to shed some light upon and examine the merits placed within the ziyarah of Lady Fatima Al-Ma'suma alayhi salam in Qum. We will do so inshaAllah with my dear guest who has joined me over the past few episodes, Sheikh Muntadhar Al-Karbala'i. So let's welcome him. Assalamu alaikum, Shaykhana. How are you?
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Hope you're doing well.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you very much.
Inshallah, inshallah. So from the city of Karbala, we do send our condolences to Imam Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman, to the two brothers, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam and Abu al-Fadl Abbas, for the sad occasion of the martyrdom of our beloved Lady Fatima Al-Ma'suma. Shaykhna, in the previous episode, we did examine the situation and the atmosphere of the caravan of Lady Fatima Al-Ma'suma and where it started and where it ended in the city of Qum. However, if we want to talk about the sacredness of the ziyarah of Fatima Al-Ma'suma alayhi salam and the various reports from Imams and from our scholars who, if you will, placed a significance in her ziyarah. If you can comment on that or provide us with some narrations regarding the sacredness of the ziyarah of Lady Fatima Al-Ma'suma alayhi salam.
Inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين الذي يذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا
اللهم صل على محمد.
واللعن الدائم على أعدائهم أجمعين بل الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين آمين رب العالمين. We begin in the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful. All praise be to Him, glorified be He. And we send our peace and blessings upon Muhammad and his holy household, and our eternal damnations upon their enemies from today until the day of judgment, inshaAllah. And as for the sacred text that we have for the ziyarah of Sayyidah Fatima Al-Ma'suma alayhi salam, and You have mentioned, if our viewers paying attention, and if they go back to each episode, inshallah, they will discover that in each episode you made mention of a single hadith. And subhanallah, we have 3 ahadith. And the 3 ahadith, for those who want to reference these 3 ahadith in case they want to go back to them, the first hadith, of course, is the one about Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, which we mentioned, where he prophesied before the birth of Al-Kadhim alayhi salam that a daughter of mine will be buried in a land called Qom, and her name is Fatima, and he who visits her will be promised paradise. This first hadith, one can go back to Bihar al-Anwar, volume 60, page 216, hadith number 41. And as well, the actual hadith recorded from a book called Tariq Qom, page 215. Then you also mentioned in the second episode a second hadith which is narrated by the brother of Fatima Al-Ma'suma alayhi salam, Ukht al-Rada, in which Sa'ad ibn Sa'ad asked Imam al-Rada alayhi salam, saying, سألت أبا الحسن الرضا عليه السلام عن زيارة فاطمة بنت موسى. I asked Abu al-Hasan al-Rada alayhi salam on the visitation of Fatima, the daughter of Musa al-Kadhimi alayhi salam, and Al-Rida alayhi salam answered, من زارها فله الجنة. And another hadith, من زار أختي المعصومة فله الجنة. Meaning, he who visits my sister Fatima al-Ma'suma, for paradise will be a promise for him. Then the one we mentioned, and that one of course is a hadith found in Kamil al-Ziyarat, page 324, hadith number 1, and in various other publications of Shaykh al-Saduq, and Ayun Akhbar Rida, and Thawab al-A'mal wa Iqab al-A'mal. Then of course the hadith of Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam.
Yes.
وَنْ زَارَ عَمَّتِ بِقَوْمٍ فَلَهُ الْجَنَّةِ. And this also is found in Kamil al-Ziyarat, page 324, hadith number 2. These are 3 ahadith that were narrated by 3 infallible, error-free Imams about the Sayyidah Fatima Al-Ma'suma alayhi salam. And this, first of all, shows you, this enough, by the way, without argument and without further discussion, is enough to say about the merit that lies in her ziyarah. The fact that 3 Imams are telling us time and time again that her ziyarah equates paradise. Her ziyarah is a promise for paradise. Of course, we will see that this promise of paradise is with its conditions. Man zaraha, in a hadith, of course, of Imam al-Rida alayhi salam, another hadith, man zaraha arifan bihaqqiha falahu al-jannah. Meaning, he who visits her by knowing her rights. By knowing her rights meaning what? Knowing, for example, that her father is an Imam, her brother is an Imam, that she comes from the pure progeny of Muhammad. Meaning the person who believes in the 12 Imams, who believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who believes in the Day of Judgment, who believes in all that the usul and the furu'. These are when it says bihuquqihim. All of these principles must be the doctrine that you carry. What we want to do right now, we have narrations, but we want to prove these narrations in a different manner by looking at other ahadith in which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam states about he who visits. Basically, the hadith is as follows: is that Al-Kulayni narrates from Zayd al-Shaham. He says, قلت لأبي عبد الله عليه السلام ما لمن زار واحدا منكم. See, the reason I brought this is that the question that was uttered by the Zayd, he says, what is the reward, or what is the outcome of he who visits one of you? One of you could mean the Imams, could mean the pure progeny of the Imams. So then he answered by saying, كَمَنْ زَارَ Rasulullah. So if we say, Fatima alayhi salam, he visits her, is like visiting Al-Rida alayhi salam, then he was Al-Rida alayhi salam was like visiting Rasulullah. So at the end, by going to say the Fatima alayhi salam's grave, you are visiting Rasulullah, because she is the daughter of Rasulullah at the end. She is a Fatimiyya, a Hashimiyya.
Definitely.
So this hadith strengthens all the other ahadith. Even in these ahadith, if someone were to come and argue and say these ahadith about Sayyidah Fatima are weak and it's not in the chain of transmission, these ahadith strengthen this hadith.
Yes.
Secondly, As-Sadiq alayhi salam also says this: من زارنا بعد مماتنا فكأنما زارنا في حياتنا. That is why our fuqaha, our pious scholars say, when you visit the Imams and these pure souls, make sure that when you visit him, it's as if he's standing right in front of you. Meaning you come in the best of fashion. You greet him in the best of fashion. You make sure you're pure when you enter that holy site. And make sure your salam is perfected. You make sure you seek permission to enter, and all these other...
You're sincere.
Yes, all this beautiful etiquette of ziyarah.
Yeah.
Now, there is this beautiful, beautiful hadith. It could be considered a sidetrack, but at the same time it could be considered wisdom. This hadith tells you about the merits of ziyarah. It talks about the Shia that visit the Imams. It talks about the reward the person gets who basically gives or works in building the graves of the Imams. So, this hadith is found in Tahdhib al-Ahkam of Shaykh al-Ta'if al-Tusi. عن أبي عامر الساجي أتيت أبا عبد الله جعفر بن محمد الصادق عليه السلام. I came to Abu Abdullah alayhi salam and I said to him, O son of Rasulullah, ما لمن زار قبره أمير المؤمنين عليه السلام وعمر تربته. What is the reward, or what happens when we visit Amir al-Mu'mineen, the commander of the faithful, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, and we basically, Ammar turbatuhu means rehabilitate and reconstruct or work on his shrine, build his grave, for example. The Imam says, Ya Aba Amr, حدثني أبي عن أبيه عن جده الحسين بن علي عن علي عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم وعليهم السلام جميعا. قال له والله, Ali, Rasulullah says to Ali ibn Abi Talib, والله لتقتلن بأرض العراق وتدفن بها. By Allah, O Ali, you will be killed in Iraq and you will be buried in that region. قلت يا رسول الله ما لمن زار قبورنا وعمرها وتعاهدها. This also tells us that the Imam knows that there will come a time when these graves will flourish and become beacons of light, where believers flock towards them. Definitely. So he says, O Rasulullah, then he who visits our graves and he who builds them and takes care of them, what is the reward? He says, Ya Abul Hasan, إن الله تعالى جعل قبرك وقبر ولدك بقاعا من بقاع الجنة. Allah. Meaning the grave of Fatima Al-Ma'suma is considered what? I mean, we already know that Qom is a door to the doors of paradise. But he says, you and your children, so Al-Hasan, Al-Hussein, Ali Al-Akbar, Ali Al-Asghar, these, the Imams, for example, Abdul Hadim Al-Hasani in Tehran.
In Tehran, yes.
Al-Qasim. Anywhere where pure body is buried, and they are the sons of Ali ibn Abi Talib.
Yes.
They are a garden from a garden of paradise. They are the decorations from decorations of paradise. He says, وَعَسَرَةٍ مِّنْ عَسَرَاتِهَا, meaning it's the most beautiful thing you find in paradise is these graves that cover these pure bodies. وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ جَعَلَ, this is for us, وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ جَعَلَ قُلُوبًا وَجَبَاءً مِنْ خَلْقِهِ وَصَفْوَتِهِ مِنْ عِبَادِي تُحِنُّ إِلَيْكُمْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen from all of his creations a group of people that when they hear about you, when they see your graves, their hearts begin to melt. And they begin to, they're attracted towards you. وَتَحْتَمِلْ الْمَدَلَّ وَالْأَدَاء. The Shia, these Shia, they will, no matter what, anything that is thrown against them from humiliation and pain, they will hold on to. No matter what. Why? Because of their love towards you. They're used to it. فَيُعَمُّرُونَ قُبُورَكُمْ وَيَكْثُرُونَ زِيَارَتِهَا تَقَرَّبًا مِّنْهُمْ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَمَوَدَّةً مِّنْهُمْ لِرَسُولِ اللَّهِ. They will visit your graves and they will increase their visitation to your graves, like we see today in Karbala and all over Iraq and Iran. and they will rehabilitate and continue to build your graves. And how magnificent is Karbala today
Yes.
compared to just 2003.
Yeah.
How magnificent is Karbala today? How magnificent is Iran? The courtyards of Imam Rida alayhi salam are going to be an entire city by itself.
Yeah.
Alayhi salam.
Alayhim salam.
And the only reason they do this is to seek closeness to Allah and to fulfill their promise for their love for you, Rasulullah. Us Shia, inshaAllah, we can be counted from amongst those
Ameen.
who actually follow these principles and these commands of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he told Imam Ali 1400 years ago. So this is the sacred ziyarah of Sayyidah Fatima alayhi salam. The first thing is what? That's shartaha wa shurutiha, the conditions
Yes.
that you must carry. And for now, before we continue to the next part, the following context that is taken from Bihar al-Anwar, which narrates the nas of the ziyarah of Al-Ma'suma alayhi salam. The ziyarah of Al-Ma'suma alayhi salam is found, narrated by Shaykh al-Mufid in his mazar, in his book of the etiquette and the conditions of ziyarah and how to visit and everything. Al-Majlisi alayhi salam says, رأيت في بعض كتب الزيارات. In some of the books of ziyarat, I noticed the following: حدثنا or حديث علي بن إبراهيم عن أبيه عن سعد عن علي بن موسى الرضا عليهما السلام قال يا سعد عندكم لنا قبر. Sa'ad was one of the people who was from the inhabitants of Qom. Oh Sa'ad, there is a grave that belongs to us that lies in Qom. جعلت فداك قبر فاطمة بنت موسى عليهما السلام. And imagine, Imam al-Rida alayhi salam was martyred in the year 2 or 3 after Hijrah. Meaning this event either happened 201 or 202 and near the end of the Imam's life.
Yes.
When Sa'ad met with Imam al-Rida alayhi salam. He said to him, is it the grave of Fatima bint Musa? Sa'ad said, yes. The Imam said, من زارها عارفا بحقها فله الجنة.
Allah.
So that's the condition again, and we read it again here. He who visits her knowing her rights, then paradise is promised for her.
Allah.
Meaning what? On top of all these rights, your prayer, fasting, zakat, all the principles must be set forth. Then he says, then he tells us how to visit his sister. Beautiful, explicit context from the Imam on how to visit his sister. This is something not, it's you don't usually get this for any son of the Imam.
Definitely.
Specific context. It says, فإذا أتيت القبر فقم عند رأسها مستقبلا القبلة وكبر 34 تكبيرة وسبح 33 تسبيحة واحمد الله 33 تحميدة.
Allahu Akbar.
This here, what does this remind you of? 33.
33. Tasbih Zahra
Zahra
alayhi
alayhi
salam.
salam. So Allahu Akbar, Alhamdulillah, Subhanallah.
Allahu Akbar.
The Imam tells him, when you visit her, you perform the takbirah, Allahu Akbar, 33 times. Then you for al-tahmeed, then Subhanallah, al-tasbih. And after you do that, you recite the ziyarah. And the Imam told him the nas of the ziyarah. And amongst the nas of the ziyarah, I took the part here which I found to be very moving, which is the part that comes after Assalamu alayki ya binta waliyullah. Assalamu alayki ya ukhta waliyullah.
Yes.
See, we mentioned them before.
Yes.
These titles come from the ziyarah. Assalamu alayki ya ammata waliyullah.
Yes.
Assalamu alayki ya binta Musa ibn Ja'far rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And of course the ziyarah continues. So peace be upon you, O daughter of the Wali of Allah al-Kadhim. Peace be upon you, O sister of Waliullah al-Rida. And peace be upon you, O aunt of the Waliullah al-Jawad alayhi salam.
Allahu Akbar.
These are khususiyat, explicit characteristics of Sayyidah Fatima Al-Ma'suma alayhi salam.
Al-Ma'suma alayhi salam. And if we wanted to actually emphasize on that, the ziyarah of Ma'suma, we do find that he says, the Imam says, O Fatima, and he's teaching us Shia how to, when we go in the etiquette of the ziyarah of Fatima Al-Ma'suma, he says, O Fatima, intercede for me
Naam.
so that I may enter heaven. For indeed, certainty is in the statement, for indeed you have a gate and a great status towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I mean, it is not an imam. She's not an imam. Same was Imam Sajjad al-Islam, who tells his aunt Zainab, Ya amma anti alima ghair mu'allama. Same right now. I mean, a ma'soom is not a person who is an imam, but yet we do find Fatima Al-Ma'suma alayhi salam pure, 100% pure from any sin, just like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Holy Quran.
These statements of the Imam alayhi salam that is found in his ziyarah, this is how we understand the status of Sayyid Fatima Al-Ma'suma.
Inshallah, definitely.
It's beautiful. I mean, we can sit and discuss this and take out explicit characteristics of Sayyid Fatima from the ziyarah alone.
Inshallah.
But that is a different time, inshallah.
Inshallah, inshallah. But we'll continue the discussion, Shaykhana, but after the short break.
Inshallah.
So respected viewers, please do stay tuned, for we will go into a short break and come back to you shortly, so stay tuned.
معصومة ماتت والحجر هدي الرواسي هدي الرواسي والله وبهذا المصاب ما ينشف دمعنا جرح القلب ما طاب والليل انفجعنا وبهذا المصاب ما ينشف دمعنا وجرح القلب ما طاب والليل انفجعنا سيلي واضر دم فقد الرضا اي والله خلاها فدوة ممنون خلاها هلا يا مجور معصومة يا هلا حيضرة فدوة الخدام الحسين اخت عبا سهل حر الوى معصومة يا ناس الحر الوى جرعة مصاب
Respected viewers, welcome back. Before the episode, we were discussing some of the merits narrated by our scholars regarding the ziyarah of our beloved Lady Fatima Al-Ma'suma alayhi salam, and we did come to the conclusion that the ziyarah of any holy shrine of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam or the household of the Imams is as if that person visited Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam himself. So we do find a significance in the ziyarah of Fatima al-Ma'suma according to her grandfather Imam al-Sadiq, her brother Imam Ali al-Rida, and her nephew Imam Muhammad al-Jawad. But back to the discussion with my dear guest Sheikh Muntadhar Al-Karbala'i. Welcome back, Habib Sheikhna.
Thank you very much.
Sheikhna, before the episode we did discuss some key facts and key merits regarding the ziyarah of Lady Fatima Al-Ma'suma alayhi salam, but can you narrate to us some stories regarding the karama of Lady Fatima Al-Ma'suma alayhi salam, because we do know that one of her given merits and her given characteristics, if you will, that Fatima Al-Ma'suma Karimatu Ahlul Bayt, the generous one of Ahlul Bayt, she, for her nobility, for her generosity, for her humility with her brother, although that Imam Rida alayhi salam is her younger brother, and her nephew, as you mentioned yesterday, she took their permission in order to go see her brother Imam Ali Rida alayhi salam. But can you tell us some stories regarding?
Inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. When it comes to the karamat, or these miracles that happens in the shrine of Sayyida Fatima Al-Ma'suma, it's been narrated time and time again by many scholars over many years. They say that there's a man the Sheikh Mahdi Poor, the one we narrated the names of Fatima alayhi salam from.
Mhm.
His book, Kalimat Ahl Bayt, like I said, it's a book that's written in Farsi, in Persian. I'm not sure if there is a translation for this book, but parts of this book were taken by some scholars and they were translated.
Mhm.
So I picked two or a couple of stories that were narrated in these books concerning the karama of Sayyidah Fatima alayhi salam and the generosity that she gives towards the believers, both the Muslim and non-Muslim.
Mhm.
The story here that I found, it's narrated in the book Karimat Ahl Bayt alayhim salam, page 216 to 219. It's a lengthy story, but in summary, basically, there's a sheikh. He was a khatib, a well-known orator in Qom.
Mhm.
His name is Sheikh Jawa Namrud, and well-known orator, well-known khatib. And he says himself, he narrates the story that happened between him and Sayyidah Fatima alayhi salam that involves his young daughter. And he says, in the year 1363 after Hijrah,
Mhm.
I was graced with a daughter and I called her Asma. And it was not shortly after that, 2 months later, I began to see that my daughter had respiratory problems, that she could not breathe well and she would choke a lot. And that really left me and my wife troubled. So he says that at first we thought it was maybe some asthma that could be cured with just an inhaler of some sort. He says that we took her to a doctor that specializes in this matter. And then the doctor could not do much. Then he says that we took her to a hospital in Qom. The hospital was in the name of Ayatollah Al-Gulpaygani.
Mhm.
He's like, she resided in the hospital, my daughter, for 12 days, also being nursed, being treated, and the doctors were still not able to find a reason as to why is this young girl choking, and she's only 3-4 months old. He says we took her to another doctor to specialize maybe in the matter, and he prescribed some medication, inhaling some or otherwise, and he says still we could not find a solution. So my wife, we talked over and said, we'll go to Tehran. Tehran will have more doctors,
Mhm.
as it's a bigger city than Qom. He said we took her to Tehran and we took her to a hospital in Tehran that is known by Akhwan. It's called Akhwan Tehran, hospital called Akhwan Tehran. And this hospital was known for specializing in children, babies and so on, from that age until maybe 10 years old and so on.
Mhm.
He says that she stayed in the hospital as well for approximately a month, surviving on whatever equipment there, being fed to her nutrients and breathing machines to help her breathe. And he says after more checkups during this time as well, we could not find a solution. And the doctors said that the only way to do this is to put a scope and to see maybe there is some deformity in her lungs. And he says that we don't possess the equipment to do this here. So they went back to Qom again, and then they came back to Tehran time after, and they went to Sheikh Al-Mufid hospital in Tehran. They said that they also stayed there for 12 days and they were able to perform the operation to see is there any deformity in the lungs somewhere. The doctor says they checked the lungs of the young baby, and of course they said at the same time, even if there was something and if we were to do any operation and surgery upon it, it would be dangerous to her life. But they said that upon looking, there was nothing, it was not in the lungs, it seems to be the problem. It turns out that the problem might be the esophagus. The esophagus seems to be very tight and not allowing enough air to breathe. And when you don't have enough air to breathe, you tend to choke on the air. So at the end, we decided to go back to Qom again. And during 2 days after they finished from Mufid Hospital, they went back to Qom. The wife of the Sheikh said, I'm going to go to Sayyidah Fatima Al-Ma'suma.
Allah.
I mean, no doctor was able to help us in this matter. Maybe it's something only Allah can aid us in. So indeed, she went to Sayyidah Fatima Al-Ma'suma and she told one of her children that when it comes to midnight, when midnight strikes, come and pick me up. She took her daughter, wrapped her daughter, took her to Fatima Al-Ma'suma alayhi salam. Midnight came, her husband came, She told her husband, go back. Sayyidah Fatima has not answered me yet. I will stay
Allah.
here until determination. She knows
Allah.
that Sayyidah Fatima will answer. The Shaykh begins to narrate, and she said that she waited until the Adhan of Fajr. And she stayed there until Adhan of Fajr. And basically she said, I heard the Adhan of Fajr. Now it's her narrating the story to her husband. And then I said, you know what, let me leave my daughter by the shrine, by the window of Sayyidah Fatima alayhi salam. I'll go pray my Fajr. She finished her Fajr prayer. She raised her hands, and with sincerity and with a broken heart, she said, oh Allah, I've you and Fatima is all I have to turn back to. And I've been turning to Fatima for all this time, and still she has not answered me. So, oh Allah, let her come to me and help us and bring our child back to us. And then she said, when I went back to my daughter, and by the will and grace of Allah, and by the blessing of Lady Fatima Al-Ma'suma alayhi salam, when I opened the cloth to see, I saw my daughter finally being able to sleep for such a long time, so
Allah.
soundly and in peace.
Allah.
She said, I began to cry, and I began to hold on to Sayyidah Fatima alayhi salam, thanking her, thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this generosity that she has given me right now. That alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala heard my prayer in this beautiful place, which is paradise. Because it's so close to paradise, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hears this prayer. And she said, I did not tell anybody in the courtyard, but when I went back I informed my husband, and now the husband narrates the story to us, and he says the girl is healthy. The author of the book says this happened approximately a while back, and the girl is healthy, and she studies in that area as well, and she attends the shrine of Sayyidah Fatima alayhi salam till this day.
Allah.
It's a beautiful recorded incident that occurred during that time.
Subhanallah.
I mean, that's just one of many stories, many stories, where when Sayyidah Fatima, there's many stories of Sayyidah Fatima taking care of a Christian man.
Yes.
There's a story where Sayyidah Fatima alayhi salam informs the caretaker of the courtyard. In summary as well, before we move on to the end, basically he woke up and in his dream, and he saw Sayyidah Fatima coming to him and telling him, you need to turn on the lanterns in the courtyard, and in the courtyard and outside to my shrine. He went back to sleep. He says, you know what, I mean, it's not time for Fajr yet. Usually I do it before Fajr. He went to sleep again, and the same dream happened. The third time she came to him and she was angry with him. She says, I told you to turn on the lanterns. He's like, this time I knew this was a dream that I had to follow.
Yes.
This man indeed, he turned on all the lanterns. When he finished turning them on, when time of Fajr came, he noticed there was a group that took the shrine of the courtyard as shelter. Why? They were a group, and it said that they were a group that were coming from Bahrain to visit Sayyidah Ma'suma alayhi salam. And during that time was winter, and the snowstorm covered, and they had no direction. It wasn't as easy as it was, because remember, they had to light up candles and lanterns. So Sayyidah Fatima alayhi salam knew that her zawar were going to be lost, which is why she informed the caretaker to turn on the lanterns so they can be guided towards her shrine, so they can have refuge in the shrine of Sayyidah Fatima alayhi salam.
Subhanallah. I mean, when we do hear such miracles, you know, it's not surprising from a household like Imam Musa al-Kazim alayhi salam, from a household like Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, where we do in every shrine that we have right now on this planet. I mean, from Fatima Al-Ma'suma, from the holy shrine of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, where I think you remember where they tried to actually bomb it, and you know, a miracle happened, and up to now they can't remove his body because it's stuck to the dome. So we do see miracles from there to the holy shrine of Imam al-Hussein, to Abul Abbas, where people come with sincerity and pure hearts to the holy shrines, and they say, Ya Allah, I have no one else except for you and the holy house of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But earlier in this episode, you made a connection between the ziyarah of Lady Fatima Al-Ma'suma and Fatima Al-Zahra alayhi salam, when you mentioned that before you perform the ziyarah and read the ziyarah, you do the tasbih, the 33 by 33 by 33. But are there any other similarities between Fatima Al-Zahra alayhi salam, our grand lady Fatima Al-Zahra alayhi salam, and our lady Fatima Al-Ma'suma, peace be upon them?
I mean, this can all be manifested in this one beautiful story that's been known and been narrated time and time again. It's been narrated in different contexts. One of them, well, the main person of the story is the Sayyid al-Mar'ashi Najafi's father, Ayatollah, the grand scholar that we know. And till today, his name is mentioned in our books, and till today we seek prayer for him and we seek mercy of Allah upon him.
Inshallah.
In one report that's mentioned, it says that this incident happened in Mecca. In a different report, it says that this happened while the father of the Sayyid al-Mar'ashi Najafi was in the Masjid al-Sahla in Kufa, and he began to pray to Allah. The one we have here is the one that's been narrated, that when he was in Najaf, when he wanted to seek the grave of Fatima Al-Zahra alayhi salam. And I also, when I was in Qom, I was blessed to ziyarah of Qom approximately 2-3 years ago, when I was in the presence of the son of Sayyid Sadiq, Sayyid Hussein al-Shirazi. He also mentioned the story to me as well. It was my first time visiting, and he thought it was appropriate that he tells me by introducing Fatima Al-Ma'suma to me by mentioning this same story. So it's a story that's known and narrated time and time again, has reached a state of tawatur. So, عن السيد محمود المرعشي عن أبي السيد شهاب الدين عن جدي السيد محمود المرعشي. So he says إنه كان يريد معرفة قبر صديقة الزهراء عليه السلام. وقد توسل إلى الله تعالى من أجل ذلك كثيرا. Allah. So the grandfather of Sayyid al-Mar'ashi Najafi, he says that he wanted to find the grave of Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam. Where is my mother Fatima buried? Of course, and we all think about this, and it hurts us.
It does.
Because we wish to be there, right? But there are divine reasons for this cause.
Definitely.
He says, وَقَدْ تَوَسَّلْ إِلَى اللَّهِ تَعَالَى مِنْ أَجْلِ ذَلِكَ كَثِيرًا. That's time and time again he would seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. حتى أنه داب على ذلك 40 ليلة من ليالي الأربعاء من كل أسبوع في مسجد السهل بالكوفة.
Allahu Akbar.
And usually these a'mal, imagine for 40 Wednesdays, for 40 Tuesdays.
Arbi'a is Wednesday.
Laylat al-Arbi'a.
Oh, Laylat al-Arbi'a, Tuesday, yes.
Yeah, Laylat al-Arbi'a. So imagine for 40 Tuesdays, you go to Masjid al-Sahla. And this is, by the way, we know we have a'mal of Masjid al-Sahla, that you do this for 40 days, you're able to meet the Ma'sum Imam alayhi salam. So he says that's exactly what he did in order to seek an answer. Where is the grave of my mother Fatima al-Zahra?
Allahu Akbar.
وفي الليلة الأخيرة خطي حظى بشرف لقاء الإمام المعصوم عليه السلام. Now some people say it was Rasulullah that he met. Some people say that it's Imam Ali alayhi salam. No matter what, the Imam Ma'sum is the one who's speaking to al-Mar'ashi Najafi. فقال له الإمام عليه السلام عليك بكريمة أهل البيت. The Imam told, because the Imam wanted the answer, so the Imam told him, then you must seek the Kareem of Ahlul Bayt, the generous son of the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam.
Yes.
The Sayyid right away thought, how do I go to he thought the Kareem of Ahlul Bayt meant Fatima al-Zahra
Alayhi salam.
So he's like, how do I go to her? Right away he was thinking about it. The Imam told him, no. جعلت فداك إنما عفوا, sorry. He says فقال Imam alayhi salam that عليك بالسيدة فاطمة المعصومة كريمة أهل البيت. But then he says إن الله تعالى جعل قبر صديقة الزهراء من الأسرار وقد اقتضحت الإرادة الإلهية تبعا لبعض المصالح أن يكون قبرها مخفيا لا يطلع عليه موضع أحد من الناس. ولكن جعل الله قبر السيدة فاطمة المعصومة موضعا يتجلى فيه قبر صديقة الزهراء عليه السلام. وإن ما قدر لقبر الصديقة الزهراء من الجلال والعظمة والشأن. So he goes on saying that no, when I meant Karimatu Ahlul Bayt, so this title by the Ma'sum Imam, I meant you go to Siddiqat Fatima Al-Ma'suma alayhi salam, and not Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra. Then he says, because this grave of Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam is one of Allah's divine secrets and one of Allah's divine manner that He decreed. So head towards the grave of Fatima al-Ma'suma alayhi salam, and you will be given the ziyarah of Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam.
So Shaykhna, so respected viewers, as you can hear right now, the Zuwar between the Haramain, between the Holy Shrine of Imam al-Abbas alayhi salam, of al-Fadl alayhi salam, are condoling the two brothers right here for the martyrdom of our pure lady, Lady Fatima Al-Ma'suma. Shaykhna, we have come to the conclusion of the episode. Sorry for cutting you off.
It's okay, no.
But thank you very much for joining us over the past few episodes. And thank you very much, respected viewers, for joining us over the past few episodes. It is very important to grasp the knowledge of the life of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam and the household of the Imams, because we do need every single detail within our lives in order to have guidelines for our lives. And inshallah we can take them as role models and as guides for us to become the supporters and in the army of Imam al-Mahdi. May Allah hasten his reappearance, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the acceptance of Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam. So respected viewers, thank you very much for tuning in the previous episodes. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much.
Allah yakhlikum inshallah.